I grew up with a totally just misconstrued versions of love and ways of just learning how to numb myself. My parents divorced before I can remember, and I spent majority of my life until I was 18 going back and forth every other day. In third grade, we lived in some apartments, and during that time I met a boy that I went to school with, and the school bus would bring me home every day. And we would go to to my friend's house, and he had an older brother that lived with him, and there's also another older girl that lived next door. One day, the older brother decided to put on a dirty movie with everybody there, and had me and the girl act those scenes out. This basically continued every day, almost throughout the summer after third grade into fourth grade until I moved away. But in junior high and eighth grade, I went to church for the first time. I talked to my youth minister at the time, and she basically sat down and told me that she explained the gospel, that, you know, for all the things that I felt have been done to me, or that I witnessed done to others, that there was somebody that has done something for you and for other people. And she explained that Christ came to the earth and lived a perfect life, and he died and bore the sins of myself and others, and then he rose again, and through his resurrection that we all can be made right with him, and all those other things don't matter anymore. After many years of numbing myself to pain, I also realized you can numb yourself to love. So I numbed myself to the gospel and decided to go my own way. I started playing guitar at church and formed a youth band with some friends, and we started playing worship and everything, but I still wanted to go my own way in high school. So I would basically go party Saturday night, then show up Sunday morning, ready to lead worship with friends. After that, graduated high school and immediately went out on my own and decided it was finally time for me to live for myself and to have control over situations that I never felt I had control over. I didn't have to go back and forth anywhere any other days. I could do whatever I wanted every day. And I completely fell in love with the world. And during this time, I had met a girl, and we fell in love. And a year later, we decided to get married. This led to a very dark period of my life when I decided that I had control over nothing. Once again, I had failed at things that I thought I had control over. At one time, I realized that I just had nothing to live for anymore, and 3 nights in a row, I attempted suicide. I tried taking many pills, and thank God, it didn't work. I decided to get my life back on track and trying to start working again and keep on playing music, but not try and cut out the other things. And during this time, I met Amanda. God called me back. And during this time, I realized that God had so much more to offer me than what I'd been living for before. And he had something to offer me and Amanda both. During that time, Ross was preaching a sermon and had nothing to do with the sermon itself, but he just mentioned somewhere in there about how they tell couples that live together why it's not a great idea before marriage. And we went the rest of the day, and we went out to lunch with our families, and that night we got home without saying a word all day, and we just looked at each other and we said, so who's moving out? During this time, my relationship with God just grew so much closer. So did Amanda's, and somehow, without being around each other all the time, we also grew closer together. God put it on my heart that she was to be my wife. Since then, God has been doing some amazing things, but during that time, I felt myself being very angry, and a lot of things from the past coming back to haunt me. And I also struggled with a lot of lust and selfish desires. And I got caught up in the sin once again. and I got called out by my wife. And instead of putting me down for it, she loved me for it. But I couldn't see past it. Every time I would look at her, I would see a reflection of myself, and it was absolutely disgusting. And my brain automatically rushed to the thought of suicide again, just for no reason. God gave me a verse just in my head at that moment. He said, look up Deuteronomy 2:22. And it says, I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I that lives, but Christ that lives in me. The life that I now live, I no longer live for myself, but I live in faith in the Son of God who first loved me and gave himself for me. In that moment, God basically told me, you've been doing it wrong. You say you don't want to live because you're hiding, you're numbing yourself, you're afraid. You've seen these versions of men that they think their version of men is taking the lives of others to build themselves up. A real man lays down his life for others. He doesn't put people down. He raises people up and puts himself below them. That's what love is. That is what Christ did on the cross for us and for myself. And that is a real man. And with that, I completely turned everything over to God. Amanda's been such an amazing picture of loving me the way Christ loves me that I've never seen in anybody before in my life, and I just can't imagine spending the rest of my life with anybody different. So God has brought me here as a vessel to say it's okay to screw up, it's okay to be messed up, and it's okay to have had bad things happen that aren't your fault, because he loves us, and he loves those that have done wrong to us, and it's our job to forgive them and to move on. And I'm just so thankful of the sacrifice that he has made for me and for Amanda, and I look forward to what he has for us in the future.